Hello everybody, my name is Average Election Enjoyer. Today on November 11th of 2025, and today is the next promised video of the series that I said I was going to make in regards to breaking down the major 2025 results. I'm going to break down some of the smaller election results in a later video. The next video will be in regards to the New York mayoral election. And today, as I said, I want to go into some of the results that we are seeing out of New Jersey and compare it to some past results, 2024, 2020, and then end with a comparison to some of the polls that we were seeing right before Election Day. All right, so as we could see here, with 95% of the expected votes in, Mickey Sherrill, 1.8 million votes at 56.6 percentage points. Jack Chattarelli at nearly 1.4 million votes at 42.8 percentage points, nearly 14 points, 13.8 points as of right now, as you can see, with 117,000 votes remaining in this election. The first clear difference that you could see from here is if you compare it to 2024. This is the most obvious difference that you will see in the two races. All you have to do, you don't even need to look very hard at the two elections. If I just click here, you could just see there is a lot more red a year ago than you see today. Some notable flips: you have Passaic County up here in the north, Morris County, and also Hunterdon remains red, but by significantly less margins here. As you can see, this is 7 points. This goes to 5 points here, so 2-point overperformance for Sherrill here. But that is a trend that we saw all across New Jersey. Flipping back to when we go over 2020, some near Biden numbers, and in some of these counties actually, Sherrill actually overperforms Biden in at least one of these counties. Moving forward, we see Cumberland, Atlantic, and Gloucester voting for Trump. This one by a little less than 3 points, 2.8 to be exact. We got Cumberland at 3.7% and Atlantic at exactly 3 points. Sorry about that. But if we go here to 2025, we see over 4.1 percentage points here in Gloucester, Cumberland 51.7 to 47.6, and Atlantic 51.1 to 48.3, so a little less than 3 percentage points. So we saw the flipping of the numbers in these counties. And if we look at the percentages of the votes here in what each county or candidate is receiving, here in Atlantic, Trump got 65,000 votes and Democrats got 61,000 votes. However, we go to 2025, Democrats got almost 50,000 votes to Republicans only 46,000 votes. That is a significantly higher drop-off in the Republican Party than even the Democratic Party. The biggest example that I found is in Passaic County here. We go back to 2024. You see Trump got 100,000 votes to Harris's 95,000 votes. However, in 2025, Sherrill got 82,000 votes to Chattarelli's 60,000 votes. That gives Republicans at a 60% turnout rate for 2024, and Democrats above an 80% turnout rate, about 86%. That is a huge margin in between both parties' rates at turning out. And while in every county it isn't as extreme as specifically Passaic County here, it is a trend that you can see all across the state, is that Democrats were winning the high propensity voters. And the amount of difference between the 2 years is so high that I can even predict that, or not just predict, but I can have a fairly good guess that there is a level of persuasion here that we are seeing in New Jersey. This is not just a turnout difference, even though Democrats are going to have the turnout advantage, and that has been a case in midterms and special elections for years at this point. That the difference between the turnout rates is so high that it's just likely, in my opinion, that Democrats are winning these high propensity voters. They're flipping Trump voters from 2024 to 2025 here, and I believe that is what helped contribute to this 2024 victory. Here, if we compare it to 2020, we see a very similar map here. Joe Biden won all the same counties that Mickey Sherrill ended up winning. However, Joe Biden would in fact overperform in almost all these counties, but you can see Joe Biden winning this state, or winning New Jersey by a little less than 16 percentage points compared to Mickey Sherrill's a little bit less than 14 percentage points. So we saw a 2-point overperformance from Joe Biden to Mickey Sherrill. However, we can see that it is fairly close to the results that we see in these two elections. We go to Passaic County, 57.5 to 41 versus 57.1 to 42. So it's a fairly close in sort of a lot of these counties. We can go here this is not what I was looking at. We go to Burlington, 58-39, almost 59 to 39, and we see 60 to 39. So actually we see overperformance here for Mickey Sherrill, and that is what I found interesting, is that you can actually see overperformances here in a couple of these Democratic counties, and also every Republican county in fact voted for Trump higher than it did for Jack Chiarelli in 2020. However, a couple of these Democratic counties actually voted at a higher percentage for Mickey Sherrill than Joe Biden, which is a good sign for the Democrats here if their vote sinks are really getting up to gear in these special elections. And this is an especially good sign for the Democrats, because if we're going to go back to 2024 and we can look at the popular vote here in these two elections, this could be a big sign for the Democrats and a very worrying sign for the Republicans. As you remember, you saw here in New Jersey about a 16% margin, and you saw a turnout of about 4.4 million votes. We go to 2020, we see a turnout of 4.1 million votes, so 300,000 votes less in 2024 than 2020. However, if we look at this margin here, if you remember, this is almost a 14-point margin. So a 16-point margin in New Jersey. Man, at the same time, Biden he won the popular vote by nearly 5 points here. Let's see here. 4.5 points here. That is what Joe Biden ended up winning the popular vote by. With New Jersey getting to nearly within 6 points. So within 6 points, you saw the popular vote go to actually Donald Trump, the first time winning the popular vote in all three of his presidential bids, 49.8 to 48.3. That is a 1.5 point victory in terms of the popular vote for Donald Trump. And I know you can't exactly go from one state to another in this sort of example. However, if you factor in Virginia and Prop 50 in California and New York and all these other special elections that you saw, if that trend holds anywhere near 2026, if Democrats can keep it above 10%, then it is likely that you will see the Democrats winning the popular vote by at least some sort of margin. And if Democrats win the popular vote in 2026, that is a good sign for them. Winning the popular vote in Senate elections or in midterms is very important. Presidential elections, obviously, you don't need to win the popular vote to win the actual presidency. But if you're winning the popular vote so there are cases where you can lose the popular vote and still gain seats. That does happen, House of Representatives and the Senate. However, because the Senate is winning specific states, it can have somewhat less of a factor. And you can usually see, as happened in 2024 and 2020 and 2025, you can sort of see with early calls in specific states getting called either way, you can see them act as bellwethers. And if Democrats can keep New Jersey at above 10%, that would spell a good sign for them for the upcoming 2026 election. And that is something to note, that if New Jersey stays about as it did here, this sort of result in a 2026 election would have resulted in a popular vote of about 4% win, and that would most definitely win the House for the Democrats. Democrats need to win the popular vote by like 10 or more to win the Senate, so don't think that Democrats really have a chance in the Senate in 2026. However, this sort of result for the Democrats, if this trend remains anything like it did here in 2026, Republicans are going to be in major trouble, and the redistricting efforts are going to be for naught, because Democrats are most definitely going to be taking the House if this sort of result happens in a year's time, and if this sort of national environment continues to hold for the upcoming midterms. And I just want to quickly end the video off by looking at some of these last polls here. As you can see, there's an average of only 3.3 points, so Cheryl outperformed the polls by over double digits, over 10% here. Atlas Intel, only 1 point for Cheryl here. Fox News had it at 7 points, credit to them. They were closer than everybody except Quinnipiac. Hemerson here had Cheryl +2, Suffolk, Cheryl +4. So you can see a lot of these polls, every single one of these polls underestimated the Democrats, but a lot of these polls underestimated Democrats by over 10 points. Now, that is not going to be happening in 2026. This was, well, certainly a shocker, but in every other race, the polls were significantly closer. A lot of the polls had Virginia as above, not a lot, but some polls had Virginia above 10. A lot of polls had New York with the margins being very close to what they were. So you could, and in California, you saw overperformances of the Democrats from their polls too. However, even though you saw overperformances from Democrats in the polls, this is the biggest overperformance by far. This is, however, not going to be what's happening. But one thing to note is that if you remember 2020, 2016, 2024, Republicans always, we were in fact overperforming in the polls. However, in the midterms, Democrats have actually been overperforming in the polls, and the same thing happened here in 2025, and that is a good sign for the Democrats here, overperforming by this much. If the Democrats can overperform by even half of what they overperformed in on average in these recent special elections here on November 4th, that is a good sign for Democrats heading into 2026. And that is what I wanted to show these polls for, because these overperformance from the polls, these overperformance in these counties, doing better than even Biden in some of these counties here, and holding up to some of his numbers, has got me not fully convinced, but I am definitely less skeptical of a potential blue wave in 2026. I still think that it's going to be closer than some people than some Democrats are hoping for, and I think Republicans will manage to gain back some sort of support for the 2026 midterms. However, this race, as I've been really trying to hammer home in this series, is if Republicans do not wake up, smell the coffee, see these results. As you can see, Ted Cruz called these election results a disaster. That's what it was. These races were disasters for Republicans. You can't just say blue state, blue result. This was not a result that Republicans would want to see for these upcoming 2026 elections, and that is just a fact, and that is just something that Republicans need to heed. Is they need to see these results, and they need to change something in their electoral strategy. So that is a breakdown of the results that we saw here in the 2025 New Jersey gubernatorial race. And I'd like to thank you guys for watching this video, and I hope you guys have a fantastic rest of your day.